When I say to you the word life, what are the immediate images and thoughts into your mind? I want you to think on this for a second. Because for me, when I say this word, I think of the crowded streets of New York City. It's immediately what my mind goes to. Think about it. We're near the New York area. Whenever you go to New York, you see hundreds of people on the side of the road, hundreds of cars passing by. This is the definition of life to me. You may think of the birds outside your window, the deers roaming in your backyard. However, I can tell you this. No matter what you're thinking of right now, there's one thing that's similar between each thought. It's the fact that each thing we're thinking of right now is the seeable. The seeable aspect in life that we're exposed to on a daily basis. Now let me ask you this. If I say a sentence, life in space, what are the images and thoughts which come to your mind right now? Is it the stereotypical green alien which we've been exposed to since an early age? Creatures which have been depicted in different novels and movies, such as Star Trek, Star Wars, The Predator, or even aliens. Creatures which have defined the word alien to each and every single one of us and defined what life in space could possibly be. They've brought up creatures that invoke the feelings of fear or even curiosity to each and every single one of us. Now, what if I tell you this? What if there's two aspects to life? The seeable and the unseeable portion. I remember I was brought up to this portion, this idea, when I applied to this school in freshman year. I applied to this school because of my interest in both biology and medicine. And I take biology course freshman year, and when I heard this, that I was taking biology course freshman year, I was ecstatic because it was what I was interested in. But little do I know, this is the hardest class I've ever taken. I sit down, and it is 100% lecture-based. She goes over that every single environment that you walk into, there are millions upon millions of microorganisms, bacteria, which you cannot even see that expose you into every single environment that you walk into. Yet I guarantee that when I said the word life, the bacteria or microorganisms did not pop into your mind immediately. This is because we don't see them on a daily basis. Yet when I say the word million or billions, let that sink in. The idea that in every single environment you walk into, there's the unseeable portion of life surrounding you. Now, what she also brought up in our first lecture is that there's different types of this unseeable portion of life. One specific type that I'm going to be going over in this talk is called extremophiles. Now, extremophiles, as you can see in their name, have the word extreme in them. So you can kind of infer that they live in these extreme environments, these extreme temperature-based ecosystems, extreme chemical buildups that go against the capabilities of life on a daily basis. I mean, these are organisms which are changing what the word life means to scientists. So I ask you this. If there are already these creatures, millions of organisms surrounding us on a daily basis which are going against the capabilities of life, why can that be happening on this planet but not up there? This idea is changing how scientists are looking up at the sky. It's changing how I'm looking up into space, and hopefully by the end of this talk, it changes how you too look up into space. Now, when I was 7 years old, I looked up into space about every single weekend. With my grandfather, who's in the room here today, his name is Papa Dennis. Without him, I wouldn't be on the stage here today. Because without him, I wouldn't have the passion of this subject or the confidence to even be up here. Without the sacrifices that Papa Dennis took for me, to bring me up to this observatory every single weekend, up in the Meadowlands, I wouldn't be here. So I tell you this, up in the Meadowlands, he went up to go see his friend, but I went up, and every single time I went up, I saw a passion inside me which burned, intensified every single time I went up there. Now up in the Meadowlands, as behind me, you can see that there's the William D. McDowell Observatory. It's connected to a huge science exhibit, which most of you guys have probably been there before from a middle school or elementary school field trip. And up there, when my grandfather's friend, he took me into this observatory, and he turned on the light. And granted, think about this, I was 7 years old at the time, right? So I'm pretty short right now. Think about how short I was at 7 years old. I was about chest level. I wasn't very tall. So when he turns on the lights to this huge sphere-shaped room, and it ignites and it lights up this ginormous telescope in the middle of the room, not only does the telescope light up, but also a passion inside of me. And I literally have to use stepping stools to step up and look through the tiny lens which is connected to this telescope. And each step I take and my eye goes closer to that telescope, I see things which I've never seen before. I see the moon up close. I see Mars, Venus, stars, constellations, things which I've only seen on the internet before. And at this age, I was only 7 years old, right? So it didn't hit me, is there life out there? But instead what hit me is the idea of how big space really is. So I'm looking through this, and then when I was 8 years old, it was our final meeting. My grandfather took me up there for one final time. And my grandfather was trying to show me this picture. And now, granted, at 8 years old, I had pretty bad eye vision. So really, I have bad eye vision today, but I didn't know it at the time. I thought everybody just saw how I saw. So when he saw me this, I was probably just nodding, not knowing what he was saying. But looking back at it now, I realized the significance of this photo. This photo, as astronomer Carl Sagan described, is the pale blue dot. Now, think about it this way. This dot, this small dot, is everything you know. All the people that you've met have happened on this dot. All the choices, all the actions that you have taken that have led to this moment in this very single room have happened on this dot. All of humanity's overcoming, all of humanity's achievements have happened on this dot. Everything you know, everything you have taught, all the technological advances we have learned have happened on this dot. This dot is our home. This dot is Earth. So I want to tell you this. Without this dot, we are nothing. But with it, we're everything. Without it, we are nothing. But with it, we are everything. So if you remember one thing from this talk, whether it be a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, however long it is, let it be this. To cherish this dot. Because without it, we don't have anything. Without it, our future generations don't have anything. Or their future generations don't have anything. To do anything you can in your power to protect this dot. Let that sink in. But then also, I want this dot and this picture to show you how large space really is. I mentioned New York earlier, right? Think about when you're in New York and you're looking at the skyscrapers. Eiffel Tower, sorry, Empire State Building, wrong geography, Empire State Building, the Freedom Tower. And you're in New York City, and you're looking up. Look at how small the planet which it resides on looks. NASA has determined that there are over 200 billion different stars in our own galaxy, in the Milky Way alone. They've also determined that there's approximately one planet orbiting each star. So by that math, there's at least 200 billion different planets out there. 200 billion, each with different ecosystems, each with different temperatures, each with different environments. See where I'm getting at? So if there's already extremophile organisms living on this planet, going against the capabilities of life, living in these extreme environments, extreme ecosystems, extreme temperatures, why is it that that can happen on this planet, but not up there? This idea of there not being life out there, it doesn't seem possible to me. It doesn't seem possible to NASA, and hopefully by the end of this talk, it also does not seem possible to you. Now, before I leave here today, I'd like to tell you one last story. One last story that has to do with my grandmother, who's also in this room here today, and my brother, who unfortunately cannot make it. But my grandmother, my brother, and I, we went up to San Francisco, summer going into freshman year. And we basically had that day, you know, when you're on vacation, you could just explore the town, go to a museum. You have the day to spend to explore the town. We had that day. So we take the luxury to go up to the California Academy of Sciences. And, you know, the locals there, they call it the Natural Museum of History equivalent. I like New York, but you know, what can I say? So we walk into this huge museum, and I tell you, we were granted by huge amounts of color. I mean, blue, purple, green, red, because the entire place is all built out of glass. The ceilings are made out of glass, the walls are made out of glass. Everywhere, colors are being reflected. We walk in and we're exploring this huge museum, and we look up, and we see this banner that says, "Passport to the Universe," narrated by Tom Hanks. So we're going in, and we're exploring, and we're saying, okay, let's go check it out. And according to my grandmother, according to her, this is the greatest $15 she's ever spent in a museum. So you can ask her after this talk how good it was, but it was pretty good. So we walk into this huge sphere-shaped room, and I mean, it was 20 times bigger than the one I went to when I was 7 years. Make that 30 times bigger. It was ginormous. We walk in, and we're immediately put into the center of this huge planetarium. We're sat down in these movie theater-like seats, sat up so we're facing the top, so we're facing the ceiling. The entire room is all made of hundreds of televisions, all connected to make one huge picture. And we're sitting there looking up at the ceiling, and the lights go dark. We are in the middle of space. The lights dim, and we hear Tom Hanks' voice say, "Are you ready to partake unto the passport to the universe?" And I'm like, heck yeah, let's go. So I look over to my brother, and I'm excited. We're both excited to go on this. And Tom Hanks, he describes everything that I just described to you. He describes there's already organisms on this planet going against the capabilities of life. He described how NASA is already putting forth efforts and occupations to combine both biology and the study of life. And when he said this, when he said that there's occupations and jobs which are combining this, I said right there, I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to do this because, like I said in the beginning of the talk, I went to this school because of my passion in biology. But I've also, since the age of 7 years old, had this interest in space, had this passion in space. So when he combined the two, it was something which I just couldn't fathom. And it was something which I said right there, I'm going to pursue this because it's going to make a change in the future. So let me tell you this. If I leave you here with 2 points that you remember again, a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, let it be this. Point number 1, when you're sitting on your couch, and 20 years from now, your grandchildren, your children, whatever stage of life you're in, are walking in front of you on your rug, and you're watching television, and the breaking news icon comes up, and underneath it, a huge banner comes up that says, "Life in Space Discovered." What comes up underneath it is not a picture of the stereotypical green alien, which you thought of at the beginning of this talk, or an alien from Star Wars, Star Trek, or Predator, but instead, it's a more realistic view. A more realistic view of what life in space could really be, of what's already happening on this planet. My second point being that this pale blue dot, this home, this earth, is all we have. So cherish it, because without it, our future generations don't have anything. We don't have anything. And their future generations don't have anything. So again, without it, we are nothing. But with it, we are everything. Thank you.